So first of all, for those of you that are really new to LifeQI, what is it? So LifeQI is the all-in-one healthcare improvement software where we bring people, tools, and data together. It's a place for you to share and collaborate on the improvement work across your organization. So we're going to get started and take a look in LifeQI itself. So this is LifeQI for those of you that are quite new. Now, when you first sign up to LifeQI, you will log in and you'll be greeted by your start page, which is what we can see in front of us. Now, your start page is very much unique to you. This is where you will go to get to all of the different things that you are actively participating in on LifeQI. Let's have a quick look at what we can see on our start page. So first of all, at the top, we can obviously see that I've got my name and my job title. We also have a nice little option here to go to our profile. So if we want to add in a profile picture or list any contact details on LifeQI, we can absolutely do that through your profile here. Scrolling down the page, we can see that a number of different things. We can see any notifications that I've got over here, so any invites to any projects that I may have. We can get and access all of the projects that I'm either leading or participating in down here. People within my network, I can access my organization, programs of work, groups, discussions, reports, etc. So as I mentioned, this is just a way for you to be able to easily access the different things that you are working on in LifeQI. We also have a notification bell up here, which will show you any notifications that you have on the system, whether that be an invite to a project or if someone has perhaps accepted an invite that you have sent them to a project that you are leading on. Now down here on the left-hand side of the page, this is what we call our navigation bar. And this is where you can access the different areas of LifeQI. We have the projects area, programs or collaboratives, any discussions, reports, analytics, groups. We can search for people within our organization, and we can also access our organizational profile through this tab here. Now, the projects area really is the heart and soul of LifeQI, and that's where we're going to spend the majority of the time today. So let's jump into the projects area and see what that looks like. So when we click into the projects area, what you're going to notice on the right-hand side over here is some filters. Now, these will always automatically filter to my active projects. So that means the projects that I have either created and I'm leading on, or the projects that I have been invited to participate in. We can then scroll down a list of all of our projects and access any one of them that we might need to. Now, another thing that's really useful within the projects area is you can actually search for projects that are happening within your organization. So say, for example, we are thinking about running a sepsis project, but I actually want to have a look and see if anybody else within my organization is already doing that. What we can do is using these filters over here, we can tick my org's projects and untick my projects. We then have a list of all of the projects that are happening within my organization. I can then use the search bar up here in order to search for keywords. So as I mentioned, I want to search for projects with sepsis, and I now have 3 different projects that relate to sepsis. As they're part of my organization, I can then go in and have a look at what they may have been doing. Now, the projects area isn't the only place to be able to access and search for your projects. It's also where we're going to create our project. So we're now going to have a look at the steps needed to create our quality improvement project. The first thing we're going to do is click on Start a New Project on the top right-hand side of the page here. By clicking that, that's then going to open up a really useful setup wizard, which is going to guide me through the process of creating my quality improvement project. So this is the first page that you'll see. Apologies about the first screen, that's because I've got super access, but this is the first page that you will see when you are creating your quality improvement project. This is where we're going to outline what the purpose of our project is. So first of all, we need to give it a title. Now you will notice that the title box is outlined in red. Now that's because this is absolutely a mandatory field and we have to add a title in order to carry on with the creation and saving of our project. We're then going to write what our problem is. Oh, excuse me, bad typing. What our problem is. Once we've done those, we're going to jump onto the next page. And this is where we need to say what we're trying to accomplish. So what's our aim and what's our rationale? Now, if you're relatively new to quality improvement, or you just need a little reminder of what to put in these areas, we do have some really handy tooltips located throughout LifeQI. Now, these will hopefully guide you and give you some really good pointers of what you should be entering into specific areas. So as an example, let's have a look at the tooltip for our aim box. So by clicking this little I button up here, that's going to open my tooltip, which is going to give me some really good pointers to consider when I'm constructing my aim statement, as well as an example of what a good aim statement may look like and what a bad aim statement might look like. Now, as I mentioned, these are located throughout LifeQI, so do take advantage of these if you need to. So now jumping onto the next page, we're going to have a look at who's on our project team. Now, at this point, I probably need to caveat that some of your setups may look slightly different depending on your trust's governance process or your organization's governance process. Some of you have a governance structure set in to the creation of a project within LifeQI. So yours may be slightly different, but it is still the same process to go through. So I now need to decide who's on my project team. Do I need to add a team member? Do I need to align it with my organizational structure? So a division that I'm working with within, or a service that I'm working within. So we can invite members to our project. Now we do this through this invite new members button here. By clicking on this, I'm then going to get a nice search bar where I can search for users as well as groups which may denote my organizational structure. So let's have a look. So I want to add my colleague Erica to my project. I know she already is on LifeQI, so I search her name in the search bar here. I find the relevant user, I click on her name, and we'll now see that I can dictate her role on my project. So is she a member? Is she my lead user? Is she my improvement advisor? I can then give her specific permissions on my project as well. So do I want her to just be able to view the details? So not actually actively participate, but just be able to see what I'm doing? Or do I need to be able to let her add to my driver diagram, add in data? That would be your edit rights here. And if you want to give her admin rights, so they have all of the edit right abilities plus the ability to add new users, you can give them admin rights here. Now, once we've created picked the correct role and permissions, we're going to click add. Now we can now see that Erica is in my pending members list there. Now, as I mentioned, it might also be that you need to link to your division or your service that you're working in. We can do that in exactly the same way as we've just added Erica. By clicking invite new members here, we can then search for our relevant area and we can then add that division to my project and we can see it's then added there. Now,
sorry, just a really quick question, just whilst we're on this this kind of area. Ladies just come in asking, can we ask someone who is not on LifeQI?
Absolutely, and very good question. That's exactly what I was going to show you next. So great timing. So yes, we absolutely can add people that are not yet on LifeQI. Now, the way we do this is through the invite new members button here, same as previously. Now, if we scroll down to the bottom of the page, you're going to see the can't find someone option. If you click on that, you can then add in their email address here, and you'll then be able to hit send invitation. That is then going to send an email to that person to, one, ask them to sign up to LifeQI, and two, invite them to participate in the project that you are creating. Okay. Perfect. Kerry, any other questions for me at this point at all?
No, that's it. Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much, Sophie.
Perfect. Great. So just jumping on to the next page, this is where we can categorize your project. So again, this depends on what your organization has set up in LifeQI, but it might be that you've got organizational priorities that you want to link your project to. So by clicking link a project, you then can choose your example priority. We also have the option to add tags. Now, I describe tags as almost a hashtag. It's just a way for you to categorize your work, and you can also search for projects using tags as well. So it might be that I want to add a tag to my project of pressure saws because that is what my project is about. These aren't mandatory, so you don't need to do this, but you absolutely can if you want to. On to the next page, and really simple, when and where's the project taking place? So I can change my dates for the start date and the end date. And I can also add in a location if it was a specific ward, as an example. Now, once I've done all of those, I'm going to hit Create Project, and that is then going to save our project and take us to the Project General page. So once that's saved, we're then going to be able to see the layout of our project and start filling out the different sections. So this is what we call our Project General page. We can see our title at the top. We can see our different tabs. We can see what I call our glance bar here. And you will also notice we have these really useful project guides here, which are kind of going to guide you where you need to go next. If you do want to get rid of them, just hit that ignore button there. Now at the bottom, we have the details section of our project. We can see everything that we've just entered: our title, our problem, our aim, our rationale, any tags, priorities, etc. Now it might be that you need to change these or you want to add more detail. You can absolutely do that just by clicking this edit button here, where you can add in service user involvement, where you can change the details of any of the text over here, and just ensure that after making changes, you do click Save. Now, scrolling back up to the top, we can see we have these tabs along the top of our Project General page. This is how we're going to get to the different areas of the project, which we're going to have a look at in just a minute. First of all, I would like to focus on this glance bar here. Now, at the front, we have what we call our project progress score. Now, this is a really vital part of any project. This is based on the IHI progress score scale, and it's a scale from 0.5 to 5.0. This is where you're able to dictate where you think you are within the life cycle of your project. So as an example, are you still within the design phase? So you haven't actually started testing any changes yet. Have you started testing changes, but you're not seeing any improvement? Or have you been testing changes and you're now seeing sustained improvement? Now, I tend to hammer this point home quite a lot, so do bear with me, and I do apologise. But as I mentioned, it is a really, really important part of the project, and I highly recommend that every time you come into LifeQI, you have a look at where you think you are and you can update that progress score accordingly. Now, do not worry if you're not that familiar with the IHI progress score scale. When you click this change score button here, you can see all of the different scores that I was talking about. And if you click on them, it will give you the definition for each of those. Okay. So as I mentioned, just a really good best practice tip for you to get into when you're coming back into LifeQI. So I'm going to change it to a 1.5, saying planning for the project has begun. Now I'm going to click change score. It's nice and simple. That will then save an update on my glance bar. Okay. And there we go, we can see my changes. So the next thing we're going to look at is the driver diagram section of the project. Before I go into that, I'm just going to have a quick stop and check in and see if we have any questions.
Hi, Sophie. Yes, we do actually have a question. It goes back to the approval of members. In my trust, someone approves new members for your project, a LifeQI administrator. Is that still the case?
Yes, that's a very good question, and absolutely that is the case. So the way that the sign-up process works, whether you invite somebody or whether someone self-signs up, once they've put in that request to be a member of LifeQI, that will go to your LifeQI administrators within your organization. Now, this is a safety verification step. We need to ensure that the correct people have the correct access to LifeQI, so then we're not letting people from outside the trust see the projects that we're running. It's normally a very, very quick process, and they tend to get it done within around 24 hours. But yes, you're absolutely right that that is still the case. Okay.
I also have a hands up from somebody. If you have just popped your hand up, if you could just pop the question in the Q&A section, that would be fantastic. And then I can put your question to Sophie. There was another question. I thought scores update automatically. Is that not the case? Do I change the scores myself? So this is referring back to the progress scores.
Perfect. Thank you, Kerry. Yes, we do need to change the scores ourselves. So we are unable to make that automatic. So the reason being, just because we're adding a Pdsa or just because we're adding data doesn't actually mean that there might be improvement there. So there's not a way that we can automate that process. So that is down to you, the project lead, or you as the project team, to ensure that you are regularly updating that project progress score. And as I mentioned, it's super simple. You click the change score button here, and then you'll be able to change it by clicking the correct one and then saving it through that change score button there. Okay.
Is there any projects that we can join? So are there any projects that people can join, request to join?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way LifeQI works is obviously within your organization, you'll be able to see all of the projects happening within your organization. And you can absolutely go and take a look at them and ask your colleague to add you. But what we do also have the ability to do now, let me just come back to the projects area really quickly, and then we'll jump back into the project. So using the filters over here, if we unticked my organization's project, you're then going to see projects happening within LifeQI, but these will be locked down, okay? You'll be able to see the name and the aim, but you won't be able to see the specific details unless they have made it that it is visible to everybody. So what you can do in that case is, if you wanted to search for a theme or a specific topic, you could do so using the search bar. You could then click on one of these projects and request to join that if it's taking part in another organization. That would then go to the admins and the lead user of that project, and they would then say yes or no, and then you'd be able to access that project. But it is worth noting that projects added onto LifeQI will automatically be locked down, so only members can view those details unless you, as the lead user or the admins, enable other people to join them. Okay.
Sorry, just a couple of other questions. Once registered, do we need to move with every step from 0.5 to 5 gradually?
That's completely down to you and kind of how your project progresses. But I would say not necessarily. You know, if you come in and I will always tend to, when I'm creating a project, I will always change it straight away, because if my charter and my team are established, I can change that automatically to a 1.0 because we've gone past that intent to participate stage. So for me, best practice, I will change it straight away. But then say in 3 months' time, we've been adding our data weekly, regularly, and we've now are starting to see, you know, that we are running our first Pdsa, but no improvement, we can change it to that. So you don't need to necessarily do it kind of step by step, but I do recommend you doing it as often as you can and in line with what you're doing and where you are within the life cycle. Okay. Now, I'm just a bit wary of time, and we've got a lot more to get through. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to carry on with the next section, and then we can check back in for questions in a bit, if that's okay.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah, I'll store those questions up, and we can have another break shortly for questions.
Perfect.
And I'll put those to you. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Kerry. So we're just going to quickly jump over onto the driver diagram section. Now, in LifeQI, it's super quick and easy to create your driver diagram. All we need to do is click the driver diagram button, click edit. Then from here, you'll notice that our aim has automatically been pulled through. We can then start building our primary, our secondary drivers, as well as our change ideas. Now, I don't know about anyone else, but I used to get super frustrated in PowerPoint trying to get all the boxes to align and be the same size. So within Life QI, it's as simple as pressing this cross button. You click that cross button and then you'll see that my drivers appear. And I keep doing that until I've got all of my drivers and my change ideas. We can have multiple drivers and multiple change ideas. You simply click that cross button there. I can then write in what my drivers are. Now, excuse my lack of imagination this morning, but going through and adding in all of our elements here, and so on and so forth. Okay, so as simple as that. Now, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm a super visual learner. I like to be able to, at a glance, see what's happening within my driver diagram. So I tend to color code. Now, the way we do this is, first of all, we want to ensure that we're still in edit mode. And then scrolling down to the bottom, we can see this Manage Colors button here. We then choose the colors that are relevant that we want to use. We can add in our titles, so our labels. There is no right or wrong. It might be a work stream. It might be a RAG rating. It might just be primary, secondary, and change ideas. Whatever it might be, choose those colors and add a label. We can then, once we've done that, we'll see our key at the bottom. We can then come in and choose the relevant colors. Okay, so nice and simple. Come through, choose those colors. And there we have a color-coded driver diagram. If the text is a bit hard to see after you've color-coded, you can change the text color to black by clicking those AA buttons there, and that will then change the text color for you. Okay. Once you've made any changes, click Save. Now, a couple of other things we can do on our driver diagram. The first one is we can expand it, so it makes it a little bit easier to see. We can then open that to full page. We can also look at the history of it. So if we want to have a look at any changes and scroll back through the history of the driver diagram, we can absolutely do that. We can also, through this Actions button, export an image of our driver diagram. Okay. Great. Okay, so before we go into measures and charts, I will just I'll just check in and see if there's any other questions that I can answer, Kerry.
Great, yes. There were a couple. Is driver diagram a must in all Life QI?
So it's not a mandatory field within the project, so it's not a must. We do recommend that you do it as part of kind of the methodology, but it's not mandatory, so no, you don't have to complete that.
Thank you. I'm not an admin, but can I still add people to the project who I think will benefit from it?
Only if you're an administrator of that project. So you don't need to be an admin of the whole organisation, but if you are the lead user and an admin on a specific project, then yes, absolutely, you can add more people to it.
Great. If I am working on a pathway for a project, can I use the driver without saving?
So I might need a little bit more detail on that question if possible. But anytime you create anything within your driver diagram, you will need to save that driver diagram. Otherwise, the drivers aren't going to stay there. Okay. I hope that was helpful, but if I've misinterpreted your question, please pop some more detail in the chat box and I'll be more than happy to try and help.
No, that's great. And I'll go back to that question as well. And in your words, what is the difference between audit and Life QI?
So Life QI is a quality improvement software. So we follow the model for improvement. So it is really focused on that improvement methodology rather than the auditing or project management side of it. Okay, I can send you more details around that afterwards, but yeah, we're around the quality improvement side of it rather than the project management or the audit.
That's great. I'll make a note of that person that asked the question. Just
you.
one more that's come in. Could you demonstrate quickly again how to export the driver diagram, please?
Absolutely. So just coming back to our driver diagram tab here, using this Actions button here, We click on that and we can then click export driver diagram, and that will pull it off as an image for us. Okay.
Fantastic.
Great.
Okay, I think we'll move on, and yeah, thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for your questions. These are fantastic questions. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the measures section now and how to add in our data. So jumping onto the measures and charts tab here, the first thing we need to do is actually create our measure. So we need to detail what it is we're measuring. So by clicking this new measure button here, it's going to give us like a nice setup wizard, the same way that when we created our project. So this is going to guide us through what we need to fill out. So first of all, the title of our project, of our measure, sorry. So this is going to be number of patients with pressure sores, okay? We then need to decide what measure it is. So is it an outcome, a process, or a balance measure? So this is going to be my main outcome measure. Now, just to highlight again, the tooltips, if you're not quite sure on what measure type it should be, absolutely take a look at that tooltip and that should be able to help, okay? Then we need to add in our operational definition. So in quantifiable terms, what is it that we're going to be measuring? Okay. Now on to the next page, our data collection plan. So who, what, where, when, and how is that data going to be captured? So who's going to be doing it? What data is it? Where is it taken from? When and how, as well as how often, okay? Then we get to choose our chart type. So LifeQI has run charts as well as lots of different control charts. So you can choose the chart type that's relevant for your data. Now, don't worry if you're not quite sure which chart would be best for your data. What you can do is you can use this need help choosing a chart type here. This is then going to give you an overview of the different types of charts we have, typical examples of what they're used for, and types of data to capture. So let's have a look. Let's look at C chart. Okay, perfect. So this is saying typical examples would be number of pressure sores, types of data to capture. So it's a count chart. Perfect. So I want to use a C control chart for my data, or if you want, you can stick with a simple run chart. But for this example, I'm going to use a C chart. We can then use that C chart option there. We then need to decide our data collection frequency. So how often are we capturing this data? Is it yearly, weekly, quarterly, monthly, daily? Also, we have custom unknown, which would be if it's a sporadic data set. So 1 week it might be every week, then it might be every kind of 2 weeks. But for this one, I'm going to do it as monthly. Then on to the next page, we then create a measure, okay? We can link drivers if we want to as well. Now, once we've outlined what it is we're going to be capturing, we can then add in our data. So you'll notice that we're now within my main outcome measure. Here, we can see the chart type, we can get back to our measures list. We have our 2 tabs, our charts tab where we're going to add our data, and our plan tab where we add in the details, where we've added in the details of what we're capturing. Now, it's probably important to note that when you are creating a measure, you need to think and choose the right chart type and data collection frequency, because once you've created that measure with those, you're unable to change those 2 elements, okay? So just coming back to our chart tab here, we're now going to have a look at entering in that data. So the first thing we're going to do is click add a chart here. From here, we can now give our chart a name, and we can then add our data in. So there's 2 ways of adding data in. The first is manually. To do that, we click add a row. We can then choose the month of the data and then the count, so how many pressure sores. And we keep adding that. Now you'll notice when I add a new row, it's automatically populating that month for me. If you need to miss a month of data, just click on that calendar and you can then change the month. Now, it also might be that you've been capturing baseline data, or you have historic data outside of LifeQI that you want to copy across. Well, you can absolutely do that. So if I just quickly come across to my Excel workbook that I have been capturing my data here. Now, notice there's different types of data. So it's important to highlight that LifeQI will expect the same format of the copied over data than what's in LifeQI. So as an example, I couldn't copy this over because that's expecting a count and a total, whereas LifeQI is just expecting a count. So my data would need to be formatted like this in LifeQI. So once I'm in my Excel, I can highlight the data I want to copy over. I can copy that. I can then come back to LifeQI. In this empty date box, I can right click and paste, and then all of my data will be automatically brought over for me. Okay. We simply then click Create Chart. We can now see that I've got my nice spark line here. I've got the title of my chart, and I've got a nice little reminder that my data is overdue. Don't worry, it won't nudge you or do anything bad. But opening up that chart, I can now see my Control C chart here. Okay. Scrolling down, we can see the data table. We can see our center line here. And you'll also notice that LifeQI will automatically highlight any special cause variation within that data for you, whether that's a trend, whether that's a shift, whether that's an outlier, whatever it may be, LifeQI will highlight that for you. You can click on that and you can see then the points that it's relating to on the chart. Now, say, for example, I wanted to come in and add my next month's data. I would come to my measures and charts section. I would navigate to my number of patients with pressure sores measure. Once opened up, I would click this box here. We can then click Edit, scroll down to the bottom of the data table, simply add a row and add in our next data points, however many they are. Okay. Now, once we've added in our data, come back up, click Redraw Chart, and we can now see that my new points have been added, and it's also highlighted a shift in the data for me here. Okay. Now, a couple of other things on charts, we can absolutely annotate them. If you click on any data point here, we can annotate the specific data points. We can also link Pdsas once we've created those Pdsas, but we do need to create and run those Pdsas first, and then simply click off, and you can then see the note highlighted here. Once we've made any changes, click Save. And again, through this Actions button here, you can export your data sheet, and you can also export an image of this chart. Okay, so just click out of that chart, and then we can come back to our measures list, and we can now see that we've got one outcome measure with a data overdue, and that's where we would click to get in to access our data and our chart. Okay, so before I move over to Pdsas, I'm going to have a really quick check-in and see if we've got any questions around the measures and charts at all.
Hi, yes, we do. I have a measure that I collect weekly. At times, I don't have patients for that week. If I put 0, it means I have poor data. If I put 100, then it shows I'm doing great. How should I mark weeks when I don't have patients? I currently have a run chart.
Okay, very, very good question. Now, I tend to miss a month if I don't have any data. So let's have a look at an example. So say, for example, this month I don't have any patients with pressure sores, and but I do for the following month. What I can do is if I click the edit button here, if I scroll down, I can add a row. Now, June, I didn't have any. So if I just click on that calendar, I can then skip to July and add in my next data point, okay? Once we've redrawn the chart, what I can then do on my July data point is I can add a note saying that there was no data for June, which is why a month has been skipped, okay? So that's what I would tend to do if I didn't have any data for that month.
Great, thank you. And just another quick question was, can start of the week be changed to Monday rather than Sundays?
So at the moment, the way that LifeQI automatically does the weekly collection frequency is on a Sunday. Now, you can change it manually to a Monday by clicking that calendar button like I showed you, but you would just need to remember to do that every time, okay? Because it will always kind of start on a Sunday.
So it's a manual thing you would need to do for that one.
Yeah, so the way that I just showed with on the calendar, by changing kind of here the month, if you click that on a weekly, you'd be able to change the date on a weekly as well, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
I hope that was
Thank you.
helpful. Perfect. Sorry, Kerry, any more questions at all?
There was just one that did go back to the driver diagram, and that's it. It said, can I use the driver and export without saving, as it's not my project as such, but I am privy to it because of my role and have been asked to design a pathway for it. This would have to be approved, hence, so I don't want to save it as it would be confusing. So I think what they're saying is, you know, could it be?
Yeah, no, unfortunately not. In order to export the driver diagram, you would need to save it, I'm afraid. So the exporting, because if you didn't save it and then tried to export, LifeQI, I would think there is nothing to export because that hasn't actually been created yet. So I'm afraid no is the answer to that question. I do apologise.
Fabulous. That's great. Thank you. That's all the questions for now. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm just going to jump over to Pdsa, so our plan, do, study, act cycles. Now, this is where we can create our Pdsas, same way that we did with the measures. By clicking new Pdsa ramp here, it's going to give us that nice, useful pop-up window where we can outline what the purpose of this Pdsa is. So it might be, I want to get my patients out of bed 3 times a day. The aim is to reduce overall number of patients with pressure sores. I do apologize about my typing today. It's not doing very well. I can also then link to the relevant change idea. So which change I'm testing, okay? On to the next page, we can then say who's responsible for that Pdsa. Is it me or is it somebody else on my project team within LifeQI? When is it starting? When is it taking place? And where, again, specific ward or location. So now this is the plan section. So what is our plan? Also, super handy thing within the Pdsa area is we actually can create task lists. So this is a way for you to be able to monitor tasks relating to this project and keep it all within one place, okay? You can assign the task to people, you can add due dates, and you can add to the task list and also tick them off as you go along. Now on to the next page, what's our prediction? So what do we think will happen? And we can also then link measures if applicable, okay? So once we've outlined the plan section of our Pdsa, we're going to hit create Pdsa, and that's then going to take us through to our Pdsa template. You'll see that we have our title up here, which cycle we're on, so you can ramp Pdsas in LifeQI. So essentially, when you come to the end of a Pdsa, if you decide, you know, if you're looking at whether you want to adapt, adopt, or abandon, and you decide you need to adapt this Pdsa, so you saw the starts of improvement, but you think actually by getting out of bed 5 times a day, it would help even more, and you want to run another cycle, you can absolutely do that. And I'll show you how in a second. But just moving down, you can see the plan section here. So all of those details we entered in. We can edit those if we want to by clicking that edit button. Now, scrolling down to the bottom, we have the do, study, act section. So this is where we enter in what happened, how did it compare, and what is next. Okay. Once we've completed our Pdsa, hit the save button here, and we now have a completed Pdsa cycle. Over here, we have our task section where I mentioned that we can tick off tasks, we can add new tasks. Now, just jumping back here, once we've completed our Pdsa, and if we say, actually, we do want to adapt this slightly and create a new cycle, all you need to do is click this new cycle button at the bottom. We can then change the title and adapt the plan and anything we may need to do. Going through exactly the same we did a minute ago. So what are you going to do differently this time? What do we think will happen? Will the prediction change? Then we create that cycle. And what you'll notice now is at the top, we're currently on cycle 2. Okay, so that's how you ramp your Pdsas within LifeQI. Just a couple of other things up here through the actions button. This is how we can get through the different cycles. So I can click previous cycle and I can then click onto the cycle that I want to look at. Okay. So let's just come back into our main Pdsa list and we can see how that's structured. So you can now see that we've got linked to this change idea. We have this Pdsa with 2 cycles. We can see with these nice infographics that we have 1 completed cycle and 1 just started with the plan section filled out. Okay, great. So I'm just a bit conscious of time, so I'm just going to jump back to the general page here, just to show you that our projects come to life a bit now, okay? So what I could also do is now I'm actually testing changes, I can come in here and say, great, change tested, but we're not seeing improvement yet, and I could change that score. And we can see that our project has just come to life through this Spark glance bar here. Now, a couple of other things to note. On the right-hand side of the page, we have our super handy document area where you can upload files and create folders. We have the timeline section if you would like to see what's happened within your project, as well as adding to the timeline, so such as status updates. We also have the megaphone icon at the bottom, and this is a good way for you to be able to chat with your project team. You can attach files and notify the project team of something that you may want them to know, and that will send them an email and get them to come back in and have a look in LifeQI. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention is I know that I've thrown an awful lot of information with you in 45 minutes, but we are absolutely here to support you and to help you, okay? Located throughout LifeQI, you have this blue Get Help With link on every page within LifeQI. So if you were within your driver diagram and you'd forgotten how to create it, what you could do is you could click this Get Help With Driver Diagrams button at the top. That would then take you through to the relevant area of the Help Center. You'd then be able to look at all of the different help articles we had. So let's have a look at creating a driver diagram. That's then going to give you full tutorial video as well as step-by-step guide on how to do that within LifeQI. And then if you want to come to the main help center, we have each area of the LifeQI system outlined here. You can then go into those areas or you can search for help articles at the top. Not just that, we also have our live chat functionality. So that blue speech bubble in the bottom right-hand corner, you can start a live chat and that will go through to our dedicated help team who are on hand to answer any questions that you may have. So we've got about two minutes left. So I'm just going to open it up and see if we've got any questions at all, Kerry.
Yeah, we've got one final question. And also I was just going to mention about another helpful resource after. So the question that's coming in is, can I register and enter data for completed projects?
Yeah, absolutely. You'd still need to go, if the project's not already on LifeQI, you would still need to come in and go through the project creation process, but absolutely, you could come in, you could add that data. Then if you wanted, on your general page down here, clicking edit, you can actually change the status of the project to completed. But yes, there's nothing stopping you doing that if you would like to.
Fantastic, that's great. I didn't know if you could just pop to the main website. I was just going to show everyone just under resources that if there are any additional resources that might be of use just under the improvement hub, there's just some free downloads. So again, if you're looking to find any more information around some of the subject areas that we've talked about today, and there's also some additional ones in there, you can go in here and you can find lots more information. And also, if you go to the improvement resources, you'll find some great downloadable free documentation that could well be of use to you there, some ebooks, worksheets, etc. Oh, one final question's just slipped through there as well. Once we've gone through all the headings on Live QI, how would I get a completion certificate?
So the completion certificates, it's kind of really how your trust or your organization does them. But what we can do is we can run reports in Life QI. So this would be very much down to what your organization has in place. Okay, so it might be worth checking with your improvement lead or your Life QI administrator whether you actually have those report templates set up. Okay. Well, that's it for time, and I don't want to keep anyone over as I know how busy you all are. But if there's any questions that we haven't answered, we will absolutely make a note of your questions and one of us will follow up with you. We will also send a video out of this recording, but I really hope that today has been helpful and you know where we are if you need anything else. Okay? Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you very much.